Hello and welcome back to San Juan County Council's Tuesday, September 29th meeting for 2020. We've come out of a short break. Just wanted to confirm, Mr. Watson, Mr. Stevens, are you back?
Yes, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yes, Bill.
All right, so we're going to have the next discussion action item is to approve the filling of equipment operator labor vacancy in the Lopez Road crew with Colin Huntimer. And then following that, we'll have a similar request for filling a position for ER&R. So, Mr. Huntimer, I see you're here. Mr. Stevens, Mr. Watson, can you see the org chart that's placed on the screen?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Huntimer, the floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, Council. Thank you for your time today. I'm here, as Mr. Hughes mentioned, to request we fill a vacancy on the Lopez Road crew. As a reminder, this is some of the recent happenings with the Public Works org chart. We've consolidated a few positions, and we've a couple employees took advantage of the early retirement program. There is an echo. Would you like me to continue?
It's fine for me.
It's fine for me.
Okay. So this vacancy has been open since July of this year. We took advantage of our summer operations and our ability to move people around to hold off filling this vacancy to save some money in the road fund. But as we approach our winter operations, I'm strongly recommending that Council allow this department to fill the vacancy so that we have the minimum number of crew available on Lopez to respond to snow and ice events. We have, a couple years ago, we had our historical normal of 7 employees in the Lopez Road crew. Right now we have 4 on the Lopez Road crew, and I'm requesting that we fill 1 vacancy to bring us up to 5, and with 5, I believe we can take care of the roads on Lopez and the other islands that the Lopez District serves, including Shaw and Decatur, through the winter operations. This is the work chart that I would like to maintain with the department. That's all I have. If there's any questions.
What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, Jamie?
To plow or not to plow? That is the question. It doesn't snow on Lopez, does it, Jamie?
Yeah, I think we could fill this position given that he's eliminated the other position with the reorganization. That's the way I should have read that, correct, Colin?
Yep.
Yes. So yeah, right now, even in winter operations, there's always things that happen. People become sick or they're injured, and even with the 5 people I'm showing right now, which I recommend Council hold through the winter, even that requires essentially us to be well and available so that we can keep plows moving through daylight hours during snow events. But I feel confident that this is a good organization to keep forward through winter operations. 5 people again on Lopez, down from 7 2 years ago.
Well, we could always make a motion to, not allow snow this year.
Okay.
All right. So, Mr. Watson, any other questions besides limiting snow?
None for me.
No.
All right. I'd entertain a motion for approval of request as provided.
You want to do it, Jamie?
Yeah. I move that we approve the Public Works request to fill this current vacancy as shown.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve filling equipment operator labor vacancy on Lopez Road.
It's just leave requests. It's just the leave stuff.
I'm sorry, Rhonda, you're unmuted.
Sorry, did you guys hear is there any questions or comments?
No questions.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you very much, Colin.
Thank you, Council.
Van, are you on the?
I am. Good morning, Council. This is Van from Fleet Services. We're here to talk. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
We're here this morning to talk about our vacancy at the Friday Harbor location in the shop. We currently are budgeted for one mechanic at each island. Currently, we only have two. Our employee here, Dan McKay, has moved on to UW Labs. And this is the request to fill his vacancy. We currently handle about 1,000 work orders a year, and it's almost split perfectly even into thirds. When I crunch the numbers, that equals about 1,400 to 1,500 work order hours each year. And I feel it's a needed spot that's been budgeted all the way through 21. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
I have no questions.
I have no questions.
Neither do I. Mike, are you okay with the request?
Yeah, with this request and with Collins and others, yeah, I've had a preview of these, and I believe that Van, as far as number of people, he's down a position even with filling this position, so trying to be as lean as possible.
That's correct.
All right.
So,
go ahead. Sorry.
I say, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the replacement hire for the San Juan Island mechanic in the ER&R maintenance shop.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for replacement of the mechanic job title on Friday Harbor for the ER&R department. Any questions or comments?
No.
Thoughts? Any? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Van.
Thank you, Council.
All right, so our next item is budget 2021 budget discussion with Council Mylene and the auditor, and Mike Thomas, County Manager. Mike and Mylene, how would you like to progress?
We'd like to have a budget completed, and we'd never have to talk about it again.
I second that.
Who wants to move that? Bill, would you like to do a motion for just having a budget?
Sure. I move that we zero the budget for 2021.
Let's do that.
As expedient as that would be, I guess a couple comments. Obviously, the additional CARES funding is great. That always helps out on the expenditure side. Secondly, Mylene and her folks recently ran the position budgeting with assumptions. A set of assumptions was I provided council a week or so ago for the 21 budget. And so we're waiting for Mylene and her staff to finish that analysis, and we'll see what we believe the staffing costs are for 2021 based on our assumptions. And that's, for me, that's really a really good sign, or actually a huge data point rather, so I can figure out where we are and what needs to be done. So I guess that's what I need to move forward. And I think Mylene did put together some numbers regarding what 21 looks like now that the second budget amendment in 20 is completed, but that also has some old assumptions in it. So that number is instructive, but it's not that instructive. Already out of date.
For the public who's listening and for council, again, this will be a standing topic until we're able to complete and balance the budget for 2021. So we may not have every time we meet a lot of discussion, but I wanted to stay on the budget or on the agendas until we're finished. So again, not expecting a lot, but just want to make sure we're thinking about where we're going and how to wrap the year up with the 2021 sort of revised or finalized budget. So Mylene, did you have any?
No, just that I do have, based on current assumptions, I do have a reasonably good estimate of the effect on current expense for next year. But that's the only fund that we've looked at so far. By next week, we should have a complete county picture. Oh, you're not meeting next week, are you?
Nope, 13th.
Well, we should have a really good picture by then. Yeah.
All right. And like I said, I think we have our Mondays coming up starting on the 12th or 13th as the first kind of powering into the budget discussion. So we don't really need to spend more time with this. It's just, again, to keep it in our mind, we need to finish this work. So is there anything else regarding, and Mylene, thank you for all the extra work that you and your department's going through to, work with and Mr. Thomas and Mr. Wolf for moving us forward on this process. So thank you. Is there anything else from council? I know it's just sort of a cursory glance at this.
Nope.
Nope.
All right. Mr. Page, are you on the line? I see you there, I think.
I'm here.
Excellent. So our next discussion action item is to approve recommendations from the Housing Advisory Committee, RE, the 2020 Home Fund application with Ryan Page. Mr. Stevens, at some point, when Mr. Page is finished, I would love to have your thoughts on the public comment that was made this morning. At some point,
yeah.
That's all right.
I've got lots of questions for this presentation.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we address the public comment because I didn't mean to cut the person off, but it was a fairly long public comment. But I want to make sure that we address that and that you're like to address this and that you have time for that.
Yep.
Excellent. And as always, feel free to jump in with your questions and comments throughout the presentation. No need to save those to the end. And I think that Mark will also likely be excusing himself from this presentation. He has taken a step back from this process this year as he is serving on the Opportunity Council's board. And so as they are one of the applicants to the Home Fund this year, he felt it was appropriate to take a step back. And so unless there's some larger issue at play, I think Mark will leave us be. So thank you, Council. I'm happy to be here this morning to present to you the applications that we've received for the 2020 Home Fund funding round and the recommendations from staff in the advisory committee. Your agenda has the agenda item today as you approving the recommendations. Want to make it clear that council obviously has as much time and as many agenda items as you would like to be able to come to a decision on this. And so it is not a requirement that you all come to a decision today. But if you feel comfortable with that, we can move forward with that if you are able to come to a consensus. Can everyone see my screen okay?
I can.
Okay, great.
Can you see it?
Looks like it. I'm getting thumbs up. So we released a notice of funds available on July 1st of this year to solicit applications for eligible affordable housing projects. This is the second year of our Home Fund program, and the application deadline was August 5th. We did a little bit of an accelerated program this year. COVID, like many things in the county, threw us for a bit of a loop at the start of the year, and once it became clear that we were going to be able to have the bandwidth to make this happen and just needed to kind of crunch together our timelines a little bit, we moved forward with that, and it didn't seem to be a huge issue for any of the applicants as well. The notice of funds available that we put out made $1.2 million available, which is also what our department had budgeted for this fund as well this year. Just as a quick reminder, last year, in the first year of the program, we awarded $1.13 million to 3 different projects: April's Grove on Orcas, re-roofing project for the San Juan Community Home Trust on San Juan Island, and then $200,000, that's $200,000, not $20,000, missing a zero there, for Salish Way 3 over on Lopez Island. And just to give the council as a way of update on those projects, both April's Grove and Salish Way are well into construction. I think that you all have been briefed on those various projects at different times, and anticipate both of those projects being completed before the end of the year. And the re-roofing project has also been completed over on San Juan Island, and thankfully was done prior to last week's torrential downpour. So those folks in the Home Trust are enjoying their new metal roofs, and we are thinking that once we finish this process, that we will go out with some kind of press release and probably an update to our Home Fund webpage. We have lots of gorgeous pictures of these projects that have been funded with taxpayer dollars, and so we are going to be doing something of a campaign push, or maybe campaign is the wrong word, but informational session to, now that we have made substantial progress on multiple projects, and hopefully we'll have more projects to fund, we'll be pushing that out to the community and let them know that their dollars are hard at work and being used for successful projects. So we received 5 applications this year prior to the deadline for the notice of funds available. Those 5 projects in alphabetical order are April's Grove, again on Orcas Island, from the Opal Community Land Trust, Fish Bay Cottages on Lopez Island from the nonprofit Housing Lopez, the Harborview Apartments, which was a project sponsored by the Opportunity Council, which is a preservation project. This is the only of these 4 projects that's not a new construction project. Hollywalk Homes on San Juan Island from the San Juan Home Trust, which is a new construction home ownership project. And then Salish Way 3, also from Lopez Community Land Trust over on Lopez Island. Both April's Grove and Salish Way 3 are supplemental applications. As I just said in the previous slide, both of those projects received funding in 2019, and their organizations resubmitted this year for some supplemental funding. The total request from these 5 projects is $3,532,551, and the total estimated project cost for all 5 projects comes to $26,523,437,000. So a lot of money being thrown around for affordable housing projects in the county. Now I'm going to kind of go through some of the high-level details of these 5 projects and try to kind of skim the surface. As you saw from the vast amount of application materials that Ingrid Gabriel so dutifully collated for everyone, there is a lot of details and a lot of documents and all kinds of stuff available, both from all 5 applicants, and we've compiled those digitally for the council. So this is really just skimming the surface and giving a broad big picture overview. Both the staff that reviewed these applications and the advisory committee have spent time with the full application. So again, this is just the big picture details. First up, again, alphabetical order is April's Grove from Opal Community Land Trust. All of the applicants for this round were nonprofit agencies. This is a rental project. It has been under construction for most of this year. Opal has requested an additional $900,000. This was not totally unexpected to us. Last year in the 2019 funding round, they had requested $1.75 million that we did not have the money at the time to fulfill that request. Last year they were awarded $850,000, and their request is for an additional $900,000 to close that funding gap. This is the last of their funding that they need to finalize that project. They the total amount of the funds that they have requested as a percentage of the project cost is 10% of their total project cost. The per unit amount requested is $42,683. Again, to be clear, that's including this year's request and the funding that they received last year. The affordability period for this project is going to be 40 plus years. They have a requirement with the low income tax credit they received for a 40-year affordability period, although Opal has in their application indicated that their intention is to have these apartments be affordable for longer than that period, along with the rest of their portfolio. And these apartments serve 50 to 60% AMI, and there are 4 market rate units. So really, this is more like 41 total units of affordable housing plus another 4 market rate. Here's a couple of pictures of the buildings that were submitted along with the application. Again, I think the council is pretty familiar with this project at this point. The construction has been ongoing, and this has been in development for a number of years. The next project is the
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah, go ahead.
That was Mike. On the funds requested by Opals, essentially to extinguish the bridge loan that they had to take a couple years ago?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That is correct. Fish Bay Cottages from Housing Lopez, again, a nonprofit agency. This is a rental construction project. They are proposing to build 6 units of rental housing on Lopez Island. Their total estimated project cost is $2,134,000. They are requesting $769,817,000 from the Home Fund. To date, they have not received a Home Fund award. However, we did use monies from the Home Fund to pay for the land cost when this land was awarded to Housing Lopez through the RFP process over the past 2 years. And so there was a $100,000 cost that was paid out of the Home Fund bucket for this project. Their request represents 36% of the total project cost. The per unit request is $128,000, and I'm just going to kind of round some of these numbers off. You guys don't need to hear me say every single minuscule dollar amount, but $128,000 per unit. They have they're proposing a 99-year affordability period, which we have in place thanks to the restrictive covenant that the county and Housing Lopez have already negotiated and placed on that property. So that affordability period has already been negotiated with us. And then the income population there would be 3 units of up to 60% AMI and 3 units up to 115% AMI. And this is a picture. You can see this is the a picture of the site where the project will be developed. And then we also have the an example of the type of modular cottages that they are proposing to place on the site, and a picture of the site plan that's been submitted. So there'll be 6 units around a central courtyard set off from the parking lot over here. And there's more detail in the applications about kind of the various site plans and the unit layouts. The next project is the Harborview apartment complex from the Opportunity Council. This is a preservation project that consists of 19 units. The apartment complex has 20 units, but one of those units is a sort of caretaker unit that is meant for an on-site manager. So we would consider this 19 affordable housing units. The total project cost for the renovation that the Opportunity Council is doing on the Harborview is $2,793,000. They are doing a wide variety of preservation activities now that they have taken over ownership of that project. Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt. And this is a question to you and to council and to Mike, and I should have cued on this when you were talking about Mark, but I'm on the executive board for the Opportunity Council as well. Should I recuse myself from this whole discussion? And I apologize, I didn't put that together. I asked council's thoughts.
I wouldn't think so. You're not profiting personally from it.
Yeah, I would agree with Jamie that there's no financial benefit to you personally on this. The fact that you're just a board representative,
Okay, I just wanted to be upfront, and I apologize. I didn't think about it until we just started getting into this. But if I should have, I didn't want to be part of the discussion in here. So.
Yep. Nope. I appreciate the question.
Yeah,
I may refrain from voting if there's a vote on the part that's the Opportunity Council. I might ask that to be done separate, so I just don't vote on it.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
thank you for the clarification, Rick. And so the amount of funds that they're requesting is for $150,000, a little over 150, and this is for a specific portion of the renovation project that they are doing, and that as they were working through a laundry list of renovations for this property, they found some issues with pooling water around the property and some kind of engineering issues with the parking lot and the way that the drainage of that was affecting the property and causing some of the crawl spaces to flood at times during the winter time. And this was one of those things that tend to happen when you're doing these types of projects, where it was not included in their original overall project budget due to the fact that it wasn't caught, because people, when they were reviewing the property, if you didn't review it in the winter time, you would not necessarily know that this was an issue. So this was an additional piece of this preservation project that they did not totally realize that they were going to need to complete, and that came in at a later date, but they are hoping to get fixed as soon as possible, because it is the type of thing that could cause much more serious damage if left unchecked. They have not received any funding from the Home Fund to date. This represents 5% of the total project cost. The ask comes to a little over $7,000 per unit. They have an affordability requirement due to the funding for this preservation project of 40 years. So that is already locked into place as an agreement with funders, specifically USDA. And the whole apartment complex minus that caretaker unit serves AMIs up to 50%. And here's a picture of the overall complex, and this is a submitted picture of the parking lot in the back, and you can see some of the issues that has been caused just in the parking lot, and there are more pictures in their applications detailing some of the specifics of those issues that they've identified. Next project is the Hollywalk Homes project from the San Juan Home Trust over on San Juan Island. This is a home ownership building application. They are proposing to build 8 units of new home ownership housing that would be in the form of 4 duplex buildings. So they would be 2 houses with a shared wall in 4 buildings. The total project cost for this project is estimated at $3.4 million. They have requested $1.68 million from the Home Fund. This project has not received any home funds to date. Their request is 49% of the overall project cost and a per unit request of $210,000. They're proposing an affordability period of 99 years via the standard home trust land lease, and their income served would be 4 units at 80% AMI up to 80% and 4 units at 115% AMI. And this is a picture of the site that is owned by the Home Trust, where they're proposing to complete this development. And here is a picture of the submitted site plan, where you'll see there would be 4 buildings. Halved into, they would be duplexes. So one, they would be 2-story buildings that would have homes on either side, and then there would be parking on either end of the development. Final application was another supplemental application for Salish Way 3. This is from the Lopez Community Land Trust. This project is 4 home ownership units. It's a new construction project that is currently in construction. The total cost of this project comes out to $892,000. They are requesting a supplemental amount of $32,000. This is specifically for to change a slight design in the construction of these buildings due to rising costs of lumber and other materials. So they are proposing a change to use structurally insulated panels which are a type of building paneling that comes completed to the site. And even though they are asking for additional funding, this will end up reducing their overall project cost because it takes less time for these to be set up. They all come together as a piece, and I'll even skip forward. There's a picture here of the panels on the truck arriving to the land trust. So that is what the request is specifically for. The project was awarded $200,000 last year in our home fund round. The total request as a percentage of project cost would be 26%, which comes out to $58,000 per unit. They also have a 99-year land lease placed on these properties that is already in place, and the income served in these housing units would be 60 to 80% AMI. And so I'll skip back to these pictures. You can, like I said, this project has been under construction. These are pictures of the panels that were submitted, and then you can
Randy Gaylord.
see they were. This is a picture of them doing the footings for the buildings. So this project, like I said, already in construction. So now I will skip ahead to the recommendations to the council from both the staff that reviewed these and then the Housing Advisory Committee.
I'm sorry, Ryan, just a minute.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm looking through my packet of information and I don't have the home trust information in my packet. Did you see it online, Jamie?
Let me check here.
Sorry, I mean, before we go on.
That would be helpful.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the San Juan one?
Yeah, San Juan Home Trust.
Isn't that the Hollywalk?
I have it.
Yeah, that's the Hollywalk, and I have.
I've got it.
Sorry, Bill. If you go to the Council Live live stream, it's one of the attachments on that for sure. It's I think.
Oh, there it is, Hollywalk, right there. Okay, I didn't have the hard copy, so I was trying to.
Right now.
I was adding up the totals and I missed. I'm going. Wait a minute. There's an extra project here. No. Home Trust, San Juan. See.
Yeah, I appreciate the council's patience in going through all of this material. It is a hefty binder.
Here.
Okay, go ahead, Ryan.
Sure. Thanks, Bill. So the first part is the staff recommendation. This year we had 4 county staff from multiple different departments review the applications. We like to try to get as a wide variety of expertise and perspective to review these applications. So this year we had Sophia Kassam from the Department of Community Development, Christine Corey from Public Works, Kyle Dodd, the Environmental Health Manager and Deputy Director of Health and Community Services, and then myself, the Housing Program Coordinator. So we all individually reviewed the applications, scored the applications ourselves, and then we met up together for a meeting where we discussed our impressions and compared our scores. And so this was the average scoring for the staff review across all of the different categories. This is included in my staff report as well, so I won't go through each individual category. I'll just say that the order in which the projects received points was April's Grove was the highest average score, followed by Salish Way 3, followed by Harborview, which is sitting down here in a slightly different category because the preservation scoring sheet that we used had slightly different points compared to above. However, the total points still added up to 200. And then the next highest scoring was Fish Bay, and the Hollywalk Homes was the final score, the next highest. And so something to keep in mind with these scoring averages is that these scores are not binding on us. They merely present a starting point for which our discussions can take place and to potentially gauge if there's somewhere that the scoring doesn't quite add up with our impressions. And from talking with the staff and our meeting, we were in really lockstep this year as far as what our impressions were, and that we felt these scores were very representative of the overall impression. And so the staff recommendation was to fund 3 projects: the Salish Way 3 project at the $32,000, the April's Grove construction project $900,000, and then the Harbor View project at $150,000. Staff's recommendation was to fully fund all 3 of these projects. And that total funding would come out to $1,082,734, which is obviously below the $1.2 million that was made available. And one of the things to note, again, besides the fact that these were the highest priorities for the staff, the highest scoring, is staff did not feel comfortable at this time making a recommendation above the amount made available in the NOFA. So we had discussed potentially adding a recommendation to the council for some kind of partial funding or something like that, and ultimately the decision was that this was our strongest recommendation that we could make, and that there was not a path forward that we saw that we were comfortable with going above the allocation that was made available. So the advisory committee was given this information. They met this month to discuss the applications. They met on September 9th. Overall, their impressions were very similar to staff. The April's Grove, Harbor View, and Salish Way 3 projects were the highest rated projects of the committee. They put the highest priority on funding for these 3 projects. And there was very little debate as far as these being the highest scoring projects. The advisory committee chose not to provide a detailed scoring average for their reviews, as their consensus was that their scoring averages were in line with the staff scores, and so they didn't want to provide some confusion there. They wanted to hold up the staff scoring as indicative of their feelings on the projects and their review of them. They made 2 separate recommendations to the council. The first recommendation was to follow the staff recommendation and fully fund those 3 projects. The second recommendation was to award Housing Lopez and the San Juan Home Trust $50,000 per unit in funding for their projects in contingency funding. And this funding would be contingent on receiving full funding by the end of 2021 for Housing Lopez, and the San Juan Home Trust would have to receive full funding by the end of 2022. So the contingent funds would amount to $300,000 for Housing Lopez and $400,000 for the San Juan Home Trust. Again, these would not be funds that would be awarded this year because of the idea that they are contingent funds going forward, and so it wouldn't necessarily be going above the $1.2 million commitment this year, because they would be committed at a later date once those projects had received full funding. But taken together, this would be a commitment by the county for over $1.7 million, which would be significantly higher than the $1.2 million made available in the NOFA. And that's what I just said. And one of the things that I wanted to make clear was that the difference in cutoffs just reflects the different timelines of those projects and where they currently are in their development. And the advisory committee wanted to make clear with this recommendation that it was made in large part to acknowledge the challenge of creating new affordable housing in the county. We're being told that housing costs of building materials is rising literally daily. The Montessori expansion project that's going on right now on Orcas with CDBG funding is also experiencing this, and that the difference between locking in supply costs from one day to the next can significantly affect your bottom line. And so the advisory committee's recommendation was to show that the county was supportive of these projects and for these applicants to take that support in the form of a contingent award and then try to go out and solicit additional funds to make those projects whole and to get full funding. And the other thing that I want to make clear is that this recommendation was made with the idea that these applicants would be able to apply again next year to receive additional funding for these projects, that this recommendation was not to say this is all the money you could potentially get for us. However, there was a desire to see if those two applicants did come back next year, refinancing or a rejiggering of the finances for those projects to bring the per unit cost down. So the advisory committee's intention was not to close the door on those projects receiving more money from the council or from the home fund in future funding rounds, but also that in general they were uncomfortable with the level of per unit request that was made. So that's the big picture of the recommendations. I also wanted to bring up this brief revenue expenditure tracker. This is as simple as I can make it as far as the commitments that the home fund has made to date versus the revenue that has come in. And I wanted to go through this with you guys specifically today at today's meeting. This was last updated September 25th, so this is about as up to date as you can get. The revenue collected from the REIT for the home fund to date is a little over $3.5 million. We have already surpassed our budgeted revenue for the year. We are past 100% on that. Last year, we received in almost $1.9 million in revenue from the REIT. The commitments that we have made include that little over $100,000 for the Housing Lopez land deal, $200,000 for Salish Way 3, $850,000 for April's Grove, a little over $80,000 for the roofing project on the San Juan Home Trust, the $60,000 intra-fund loan that was made for rental assistance due to the COVID pandemic, which will be paid back to the fund over the next 3 years. However, at this point, that is an expense, and we have not paid any of it back so far. And then the admin costs for 2019 and 2020, which come out to just a little under $30,000, which if you take that compared to the 2 years of revenue we received so far is less than 1% of the revenues that we've received in admin costs. So you take all those expenses and subtract them from the revenue, and there's about $2.25 million in uncommitted funding currently sitting in the bank, not including funding that we may receive through the rest of the year. So that is the broad big picture. I'm happy to answer any questions, get in the weeds with you guys, and let me know what kind of direction you want to take it in.
So let me ask one budget question, then I'll turn it over to council. Can you confirm again the 2020 number year to date is through what day?
September 25th.
Okay. And how real time are the REIT funding collections? Is it based literally on day of transaction?
So in this instance, when I say September 25th, that was the most recent transaction. The Treasurer's and Auditor's Office have been really good about getting those transactions posted within a week or two. So it's been pretty consistently up to date.
Okay. Mr. Stevens, I've crunched some numbers on what we might have for an ending balance at some point at the end if anyone's of interest. And just again, for the record, I'm not sure how much I'm going to participate. I don't feel comfortable voting because one of the recommendations is the organization that I'm on the board for, but I do have some numbers I wanted at the end to talk about. So, Mr. Stevens?
So, Ryan,
ending cash that's available. There's nothing about allocation.
Is it my turn yet?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Ryan, I'm kind of confused here. What is so first of all, it looks like there's about $1 million dollars sitting in the bank even after these commitments, if we were to just do the commitments?
As far if just the staff recommendation,
Yeah.
yes, that would be right.
Okay. And in that letter that was read this morning, they kept talking about partial funding of 100,000. Is that just the land part of that?
I'm assuming that's what they're speaking of. If they're the only $100,000 figure that I would come up with would be for the land. Yes.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me.
All right. Well, while he's doing that, Mr. Thomas, do we not have non-home fund contributions to Opal?
Yeah, we've had a couple contributions. We helped them with a community development block grant. We provided $200,000 in REIT 2 money, which there was a unique carve out in that statute for homeless housing. So those are a couple other pots of money. I don't remember what the block grant amount was. I want to say $200,000. Maybe Ryan knows.
Yeah, that's correct. It was $200,000, and that comes through the county. However, that was
a state grant.
They received that funding as part of an application that they made. We didn't really do any work for that,
right.
Other than the actual work of monitoring the CDBG grant.
Right. I was thinking the $200K of REIT 2. So, in effect, we've already given over $1 million to Opal. And well, assuming that Jamie's listening. Okay. And it appears to me that Opal's literally asking the county to resolve their bridge loan at 100%.
I think that's correct. I think that has been consistent as far as what their ask was last year. I don't think anything has changed from last year. So yes, that is what their this funding would be able to do.
So that means they've not received or solicited any other funding sources to resolve this bridge loan other than from San Juan County?
Not that I am aware of.
Except the construction costs are going up. Lumber's going up like 5% a week.
No, I understand that reality, but they also, they're also moving in. So,
So Ryan, isn't Opal's project? I don't know if people are moving in now or if they'll. But in 2021, aren't they going to be still opening up some?
My understand they have had a first wave of residents move into that complex, and my understanding is that they intend to be fully leased up by the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Well, I was going back to that letter and the comment that there would be no new housing produced in 2021, but that Salish Way 3, that'll all come online in 2021. It just brought up some questions on that.
I think their point was there wouldn't be any newly funded units coming online, right? You would call those Salish Way 3 and Opal as in previously funded units, right? Right? Since they started before, right?
So if we were to do the advisory committee's recommendation, isn't that, it seems like we're already covered on that if it was a contingent one with the $1 million in the bank.
As far as yes, theoretically we could pay for that out of pocket.
So I think, Jamie, I'll just interject real quick. What I heard the advisory committee say is it would be more like a grant award letter where you issue the grant award letter saying you are awarded these funds contingent upon being successful in getting the additional dollars to do the project. So the award letter goes out. In theory, you've committed those funds. You just don't develop the contract until they have the rest of the funds available to build the units.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is a good practice, which says, okay, you know, you don't have full funding yet. Here's how much we're going to contribute. Get the rest of your funding. When all your funding's in place, boom, then we'll sign the contract.
Yeah, I think that would be a very common way of us doing this in the future for any project that hasn't reached full funding status.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that's trying to go, you know, I'm kind of stumbling on my questions, Ryan, because I didn't get your staff report till you sent it to me at 9 o'clock. So,
and I didn't either. So I still don't have it.
Apologies for that. I think the PowerPoint, the PowerPoint is mostly taken straight from the staff report, so there shouldn't be any startling revelations in that staff report since you guys just sat through that PowerPoint.
Okay.
So on your in your staff report, where staff was not comfortable of the partial funding, and yet right now you're saying it might not be a bad way to go in the future. So could you kind of reconcile that for me?
Well, I think what staff was trying to operate under the guidelines of the NOFA that had been released by the council. And staff felt that if the council released the NOFA for $1.2 million, that we would respect that limit that had been released. And it didn't seem clear. With that in mind, it didn't make sense to us to try to just go up to 1.2 and just say, well, we'll give you $100,000 or 120 and some change to get you started, whereas the advisory committee did feel comfortable making a recommendation to this group of a larger fund. So that's kind of where the difference comes in.
Okay.
Right. And Ryan, could you tell me what percentage of the Housing Lopez overall project is the 770K request? I think it was like 39%.
36, Bill.
36, thank you.
Yeah, 36%.
And does that include already the 100,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, it does. Okay. So it would really be $870,000 then. I mean,
yeah,
the
right.
36%. And then the Home Trust, San Juan Home Trust, they're asking for like 50% at 1.68 million, right?
It is 49% exactly.
Yeah, okay, 50%.
So statutorily, we have a requirement that we cannot fund projects from this fund at higher than 49%.
That's why it's a magic number. Okay.
And just for council, if the REIT sales continue based on last year's numbers and we're actually ahead this year, we'd be about $500,000 in ending cash balance if we follow the recommendation of the board. There'd be around $500,000 that would be in the budget for next year as ending cash or beginning cash balance, estimated.
Right.
If they raise those funds.
Right, yeah, if we continue at $157,000 a month in REIT collection for October, November, and December, that would leave us about $500,000 to carry over to next year as beginning cash. If we used all that money.
I'm confused, Rick. Is that at the advisory committee's recommendation or the request?
I'm sorry, correct. Yes, using, as you mentioned, there's about $1 million that was, leftover money. If you spent that $1 million, if we keep going at a pace that was last year's pace for REIT collection, it'd be about $500,000 that would carry over as a beginning cash balance, assuming similar REIT collections.
Yeah, but Mr. Hughes, we're basically doing June to June allocations, right? Or September to September allocations. So
I would just say if there's a concern about not having money, I don't know if there is or not, but if there's a concern about not having much of a beginning balance in the fund,
right.
I was just pointing out that there would be a couple $100,000 that would carry over just from the October through December portion.
Right.
Not agreeing, just pointing that out.
Right. Well, so I admit to being a bit uncomfortable us taking care of the entire bridge loan for Opal. I mean, we've already given over $1 million to that project. Granted, it's 45 units, so the maintenance project of Harborview Apartments, that seems like a no-brainer to me. I certainly think we ought to be able to support the Opportunity Council, who's been, oh, by the way, supporting us. So it seems to be fair. The $32K for Lopez Community Land Trust, again, seems to be a no-brainer. So in some ways, you know, I would lean more heavily towards the Housing Lopez funding fully, and maybe cut back on the Opal funding, and they ought to be able to find some other source of funds to try to help resolve their bridge loan. And then the whole San Juan Home Trust, I mean, that looks like a I'm sorry, a pie in the sky request. I mean, I would love to support their project, but they clearly need to go seek, you know, additional funding sources.
Bill, can I just give one piece of context on the bridge loan question?
Absolutely.
And again, I just want to make clear that the understanding that funding is never guaranteed from this source of revenue, and we haven't made promises to any organization as far as those who be receiving funding. But that bridge loan was a special deal that they received that they were only able to get because of the existence of the home fund and the idea that there was a local support of funding for this project. Again, never with the promise that they would receive these funds, but it's not as if they just went to a bank and said, hey, we need a bridge loan. This was to be able to start construction on this project and to get it done. And so your concern is totally valid. I just want to add that extra piece of context of that the only reason they even have that loan is because of the existence of the home fund.
No, I understand that, and I think our $850,000 contribution last year towards that bridge loan was, you know, sign of our commitment to the project and acknowledging, you know, our contribution to trying to resolve that bridge loan. And I realized we had not made any commitments to it. So, but I guess my concern is, again, precedent setting, you know, of nonprofit organizations. Now, you know, again, April's Grove is what I think $17 million project. So they've done lots of fundraising, and I want to give them credit for that. All right. So, but I don't see the county being the sole source to helping them resolve their bridge loan as necessarily the correct strategy. You know, and if we do Housing Lopez fully and Opportunity Council and Lopez Community Land Trust, then that does leave some money left over that we could, you know, again, throw towards Opal to help with the bridge loan, but not cover 100% of it.
Yeah, I mean, the project has something like $3.4 million in personal private donations. Right. So there's a big mix of funding involved in multiple of these projects, but I certainly understand what you're saying.
Ryan, can I ask a clarification question? And it's been a year, but did we not, as a council, again, under how you described it, we can't guarantee where the funding's going to come from, but last year there was an ask, and we, in my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we suggested that they would split the payments up for the bridge fund loan in two different sections. Am I off base there? You know,
as far as last year and this year, or over multiple years? I'm sorry, maybe I'm a little confused.
That we suggested to Opal, because I think a recommendation came in for more money, that we said we would fund in the first portion the $850,000 and look to them to come back to make up the other half of that this year.
So that I think that was everyone's understanding, but again, never with the implicit approval that they would receive that second half of the funding. So they were certainly encouraged to reapply, and they at least did a good job of making their ask clear last year. But the council never approved that second half of the funding.
No, I get it, but we had this discussion that we're having right now about splitting it up over 2 years, did we not?
Yes.
And there was sort of a head nod between the three of us that that was a good plan. Again, barring whatever, we could make our changes. It wasn't guaranteed. I get all of that, but there was the intention, at least, to consider the 2-year application to help cover the bridge loan costs.
I would say my hazy recollection is aligned with yours.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have a problem with the staff and advisory committee recommendations, and it seems, Bill, you've got your issues with Opal, and I kind of have the same thing with the Fish Bay Cottages, and that when they pitched us the project, it started out as they wouldn't need anything. They could raise all the money themselves. However, I can support going with the advisory committee's recommendations. That, like you said, if the housing trust is a pie in the sky, then that might help them get it going. And I think the same thing with Fish Bay Cottages.
And so remind me again what we were pitching for those two future commitments.
It was $50,000 a unit. So for Fish Bay, it would be 300,000, and the other ones are 8 units, so that'd be 400,000. Is that correct, Ryan?
Yes, you are spot on.
So, Mr. Watson, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm thinking. Sorry.
And Rick, what about, if you want to exclude Harborview, but what are your thoughts? So far, Bill and I have both agreed on Harborview, so it doesn't matter.
I was just sort of backpedaling, going, well, I would like to talk about everything else but Harborview.
Yep.
So thank you for that. Again, no comment regarding Harborview, but I support what you said, Jamie, excluding the Harborview part, the recommendation of the committee. And I think it's important to fund the Opal project and the other projects that were provided. And I think to your point on the starter money for the Lopez project, as well as the one on San Juan, that's a good path to go. It still leaves us some money in reserve or to carry over. And so I support that part. Again, if not wanting to weigh in on the Opportunity Council portion.
So my math says then that's like 1.78 million of the 2.2, so that still leaves $500,000 that exists today in the fund.
Correct.
Plus whatever we collect between now and next September.
Correct. Ryan, could you pull up the page that had the housing bank recommendation?
Sure. So this is where it shows that the total number of commitment would be 1.782 million. And then there's specific recommendation, Jamie had it right, which is $50,000 per unit in funding contingent on being fully funded for those projects. And their recommendation was to have two different cutoffs for when, we don't want to let these just sit committed for 10 years or something like that. So their recommendation was to have the contingent funding for Housing Lopez be by the end of next year, as they seem just about ready to go on construction, and then the Home Trust by the end of 2022.
Right. And 50,000 per unit is sort of what we've been averaging? Question mark.
Well, this is our second year, so not a great sample size yet, but I would say that is a very comfortable. We are very comfortable funding things at $50,000 per unit. The advisory committee had a discussion earlier this year, when the NOFA was being developed, about whether they wanted to recommend to the council a per unit cap. And ultimately it was decided that there was not a need to restrict ourselves in that way. And if a project was really great, it didn't, we would fund what we want to fund. But just for your reference, the cap that was generally being thrown around was $75,000 per unit. And again, that was never agreed upon, that was never finalized, but that was the range that the advisory committee was looking at.
So Ryan, is there an Excel sheet that lines up the staff recommendation and then the housing board recommendation, so we can look at it? Is there one document that has all of that, kind of tiered out, like here's what we recommended and here's the addition?
It should be the staff report, which has the staff recommendation right at the top. And let me share this part of my screen. Just going to share my whole desktop.
There are a lot of different documents. So.
Yes, yes, quite a lot. So this is my staff report. On the second page, this is the staff recommendation, and that total is $1.082 million. And then right below that is the advisory committee recommendation, and there's encompasses the staff recommendation, so that $1.82 million plus an additional $700,000. So it would be 1.78273.
So I support this recommendation, again, pulling myself out of the part that we go to the Opportunity Council, but I support what's brought forward there at the 1.782.734 minus the Opportunity Council part.
Right. So how about we resolve your conflict here? Mr. Chair, I move we approve the 151 rounded number $1,000 allocation from the Home Fund to the Opportunity Council for the Harbor View Apartment maintenance project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the amount presented for the Opportunity Council's maintenance project on San Juan. Again, for the record, I'm on the Opportunity Council board. Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I abstain.
Great. All right, that one's done off the table.
Thank you.
So then I guess, Jamie, I think your motion would be, Mr. Chair, I move we approve the rest of the Housing Advisory Committee's recommendation for 2020 awards and future commitments.
Second.
Wait. Motion. Sorry. And a second for approval of the Housing Board's recommendation as funded with the future requirements. I don't think I said that right. Close enough?
Yep.
Oh, great. Any comments or questions?
No, I think it'll be a good way to get some money out there for these projects.
Anything for you, Mr. Watson?
Nothing for me.
And I agree with Mr. Stevens. I appreciate the work from staff and all of the different housing options have been brought forward. I think this is a really great use of the funding that the taxpayers have approved. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Ryan, very much, and Mark.
Thank you, Council. We will get to work right away on these awards and the contracts for these projects. We will get them moving. Just for the Council's information, in case you didn't already know, I will be out on leave for much of next month for the birth of my second child. And so Mark will be doing all this work.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Well, I think the requirement is you got to get those contracts done before he leaves, right, Mark?
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that.
All right. Thank you very much. That was a really good discussion, and I appreciate everyone's feedback. It's 11:51 right now. Is it all right for council to break for lunch until 1 o'clock?
Yep.
All right. Well.